It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. We have got a great show for you today, as always, so please hit that share button and help us to keep growing. Today, we start with an old story. Way back in September, we talked to you about two white boys who ended up in a room doing homework on their campus at Arizona State University. They wanted a quiet place to study. They sat at a table. Apparently, they were minding their own business when they were hijacked by two African-American girls who told them that this is a black cultural center and your whiteness is not welcome here. And this went viral. There was a lot of yapping back and forth. Now we have, finally the situation has resolved itself. The university has handed down its decision about who, if anyone, is going to be punished for this national event. So before we do anything else, let's remind you of the story. Here is video from September.
What did I do wrong?
You have a better. You're offensive. Police lives matter?
You have the same sticker.
We're just trying to do school.
What?
You guys have the same sticker of the other.
But this is our space.
We've got a Police Lives Matter sticker and we're getting kicked out. Can't do school. Nobody's kicking you out. You just said we have to leave.
No, I said you're making the space uncomfortable. But you're white. Do you understand what a multicultural space? It means you're not being centered.
White's not a culture?
No. No, it's not a culture. It's white is not a culture. Say it again to the camera. You think whiteness is a culture?
This is insane.
So anyways, this is the violence that ASU does, and this is the type of people that they protect, okay? This white man thinks he can take up our space, and this is why we need a multicultural space.
Yeah, I'm still puzzled when I watch that, with a straight face, this young African-American woman can say whiteness is not a culture. You blame everything, you progressives and you idiot college kids who've blindly sucked in the poison of your professors. You blame every aspect of the world's problems on whiteness, and yet, in spite of that, whiteness isn't really a thing. How can something that doesn't exist, no such thing as white culture, no such thing as white history, no such thing as white or Caucasian civilization, doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, how in the world is it possible to be your straw man for every evil in the world today? That's over and above your bullying, your childish behavior. That's the thing that drives me nuts, that you're so shallow and, quite frankly, uneducated that you could make such contradictory statements. Nevertheless, Arizona State, as I mentioned to you, finally got around to adjudicating this, right? And so the punishments were very light. The two African-American girls actually received, there they are, you can see them right there. And look at those two. These are your pit bulls. These two would-be sorority girls, these spoiled, pampered African-American kids who get privileged positions on college campuses just because of their race. There, that's what the bulldog of a typical campus looks like today. These are the ones that are going to drive you out because, after all, whiteness isn't really a culture. And so they were punished, believe it or not, mildly. They were lightly punished by being told to write a 3-page paper on how next time when they talk with white people about race and society, they will be civil. So in other words, the university said you're welcome to have these kinds of conversations, but you have to be civil about it. You can't engage in invective, tell them that they don't even exist culturally, and then throw them out of your little safe space. And so you think they would take this punishment gratefully, you think they would recognize or learn, and this is the problem with our little snowflake minority students who've been puffed up by these faculty. They don't believe they ever have any lessons to learn. They teach. They don't learn. And so this enraged the students who immediately claimed that they were, quote, being persecuted, unquote, because they were, quote, defending our multicultural center from racism and sexism. So if you happen to be white, literally, this is what they're telling you. If you are white and you are in their space, you are both racist and sexist. The two students, undergraduate, give us that picture again. The two students, undergraduate Mastani Karishi and graduate student Sarah Takola, posted a video on Instagram claiming the investigation into them was, are you ready for this? Racially biased, and that they were, quote, forced to confront these men who were quietly studying because Arizona State University faculty refused to tell the men to leave. You know what? The ASU faculty don't have the legal right to tell them to move. Neither do you. That's why we're here. And it goes on. The statement from the young girls goes on. Dear white people, aka ASU, you openly discriminated against us on November 16 when you handed down your decision from your racially biased investigation. Quershi said, according to the caller, we're being persecuted for defending our multicultural center from racism and sexism. ASU is a violent place. And what progressive complainer would be worth their panties if they did? What progressive complainer would be worth their hair braids if they did not include violence? Two white boys sitting there, ultimately thrown out of the space, and they're the ones who are victims of violence. And we glad to bring this story to First Circle. And I suppose we do have to give a shout out to ASU. It wasn't much of a punishment, but they at least did try to teach these girls something. Imagine for one moment if the shoe was on the other foot and two white men were throwing two black women out of a public building because of their race.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at mypillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
Whitney Houston once said that children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Instead, I guess you can make them an inanimate object, much like the puppet who said this line.
I often said that children are the kite strings that keep our national ambitions aloft. We say all those kids, well, they're all our children. They're all our children. And they are the kite strings that literally lift our national ambitions aloft.
I literally agree with Whitney. R.I.P. I argue too many of our children have been made shields, or I guess kite strings, for selfish adults who are scared to be in a classroom with our kids for fear of catching the thing that we can't name. And it is definitely raising eyebrows. Eek! I know I need about 50 more years of Botox to get to that height. Now, the latest standoff was between the Chicago Teachers Union and the city of Chicago, as 340,000 students were just left in the crosshairs, not given the education they deserve.
And to be clear, what the Chicago Teachers Union did was an illegal walkout. They abandoned their posts and they abandoned kids and their families. We are working diligently every single day at the bargaining table to narrow the differences and to get a deal done. My team has been working every single day. They're back at it again here Sunday. They were at it yesterday. And we can get a deal done if there's goodwill on both sides. But fundamentally, what we cannot do is abandon the science. We know that the safest place for kids to be is in-person learning in schools. And we've spent hundreds of millions of dollars to make our schools safe. They are safe. We've got the data to demonstrate that. We've got to get the teachers union to get real and get serious about getting back into in-person learning.
Holy crabapple! Did Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot actually just say something with logic and actual focus on students? She did just get real there. But the teachers union simply does not care about that.
We understand the public wants this impasse to end. No one wants to see the people who run the schools disagreeing. The issue here is the question of how we're dealing with the pandemic. The pandemic is the issue. It's not whether or not teachers want to work. That's been established.
Oh, it has most certainly been established. Which brings us to today's question. Why is it that so many teachers refuse to work when you have the true frontline workers who haven't whined, moaned, or walked out on their work? Rather, they are getting kicked out if they don't take the jab. So you let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you could share the video, it'll help open up the lines of communication, which apparently have troubled Chicago and the teachers union, led by President Jesse Sharkey.
This is a new situation for us as individuals in our lives, but also in the entire history of our union. But some things remain true. An injury to one is an injury to all, as it always has been. And if we stick together, there is safety in numbers. This is a difficult situation, but we're going to act like a union and we're going to get through this together. Solidarity and good night.
Solidarity for the South. And I'm sorry, that video was actually taped 1 year ago, because 1 year ago, the Chicago Teachers Union pulled the same crap. They want solidarity for themselves, never caring about the actual students whom they are supposed to be teaching and who are not the transmitters of the thing for which they took that jab to get the protection. And just a trivial thing, did you hear mention of the students anywhere in that solidarity? Nope. According to the Twitter profile, the union is dedicated to the schools Chicago deserves. I guess that means emptiness, because that's what the union is saying by not having schools open. And maybe by the time you are watching this video, the schools may have opened. Either way, it won't be long before there's another excuse for the unions to halt any possibility of actual education taking place. Because again, this is the same Chicago Teachers Union that applauded 6 of their dance teachers exactly 1 year ago for their bravery of not being in schools and for making a video called "The Moment We're Safe." Now I'm warning you, it is really quite awful. If you have young children in the room, they should avert their eyes.
Make it make sense. Safety is essential. Keep our students and our teachers safe.
I get physical reactions when I see that level of cringe. It physically hurts me, and that monstrosity went on for another minute and a half. Can you see the hives coming through your screen? At least Twitter did something useful for once and warned the people that there is harm caused in this video. It's almost as much harm as if the students were in the classrooms with those teachers who were pushing all that indoctrination on them. Speaking of such people, of course, the one, the great, and thankfully the only, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez follows the Chicago Teachers Union Twitter account because comrades must stick together. And talking about someone who suffered from a public school education, AOC did it. She managed to become yet another triple jabber who scolded you about wanting to have a life and then who went to party hardy in free state of the oh-so-bad Florida, only to come back to the lockdown hell that is New York City and within 1 week, get the thing. She's got the thing. The thing that she won't stop yelling at you about? That thing. Her catching the thing told us all that venereal diseases are not the only things you can catch at a drag queen bar in Miami. Now, did AOC actually get the thing from the bar? We don't know, and we'll never know. What we do know is that she had a good time when she was there. Whoever posted that video clearly wants to sleep with AOC. And if you don't understand that joke, please watch last week's video. Who am I kidding? Go watch that video either way. We've been told that AOC is recovering at home. The question, obviously, is which home? Conspiracy theory. Now, she also says to get your booster and to follow CDC guidelines. Sold. AOC's clear and consistent actions have really convinced me. Said no one ever. But how can I blame her? She's just in a New York state of mind. The same state of mind of another Bronx-born Latina, Supreme Court Justice warrior Sonia Sotomayor. The Supreme Court held a hearing Friday on the legality of the Biden administration pushing for the vaccine mandates on employers who have 100 or more employees. Well, here's what Sotomayor had to say during oral arguments.
We have hospitals that are almost at full capacity with people severely ill on ventilators. We have over 100,000 children, which we've never had before, in serious condition, and many on ventilators.
You know what that was?
The lie detector test determined that was a lie. Man, yeah, right, man.
Come on, man. Unite the party. 50.
And the White House obviously doesn't care about the lie.
Well, I'm not going to speak to Supreme Court arguments or statements made in those arguments, but I will tell you that what is at stake here is our effort to protect health workers and, most importantly, protect patients with the CMS rule, and also to make workplaces safer with the OSHA rule, which we have confidence in our legal argument for. So I will leave it to them to decide, but that's what's being argued now.
Jen Psaki. That's an answer to something, just not what Peter Doocy just asked about the misinformation that Sotomayor provided. Lies such as this are not found just with the support of the White House. Most of the media won't do anything about blatant lies because, well, we're dealing with these kinds of people.
And I mean, I'm a Fauci groupie. I'm a thrice vaccinated mask adherent. I buy KN95 masks by the, caseload. They're in every pocket. I wear them everywhere except when I sit down. And I am certain that this is not a variant I can outrun.
Yes. But we have on our hands a Christmas miracle, if you will, and I'll give credit where credit is due. CNN, of all networks, actually decided to call out Sotomayor. When a lie is that blatant, even they can't hide behind their pedophiles and Tubins. Sotomayor said more than 100,000 children were in the hospital in serious condition, which would be fine, except that number isn't even 5,000. And then CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky confirmed the number was fewer than 3,500. That's off only by a factor of like 29. I'm sure there's rounding in there, something. So anyway, unfortunately, Sotomayor proved later on in her statements that she's not just a liar. She's also a dum-dum.
If it's within the police power to protect the health and welfare of workers, you seem to be saying the states can do it, but you're saying the federal government can't, even though it's facing the same crisis in interstate commerce that states are facing within their own borders. I am not sure I understand the distinction why the states would have the power, but the federal government wouldn't.
There's this thing. It's called the Constitution of the United States. Within that thing, there is a 10th Amendment. And it is written for all to read that the states have the powers with such regulations as what the court's talking about. Being a Supreme Court justice, a lawyer, and, a citizen of this country, you'd think this would be like, duh. But no. You don't underestimate the level of stupidity at the highest court. Clearly, I could go on. Instead, I'll stop since I think I hit a fair number of institutions today. All three branches of the federal government: executive, legislative, judicial, the media, city government, and schools. Sounds good. Right now, you may be saying, F all of this, and I'm right with you. I give 3 solid Fs this year. Faith, family, and friends. I think you should too. And I also think you should share this video. Until next time, let's go, Brandon, and stay healthy, America.
Today's show is sponsored by Clean Start Hand Sanitizer. For an odor-free foam hand sanitizer that lasts 2 hours and provides 19 refills, visit freedomproject.com/clean. That's KLEEN to order yours today.
It's time now for Reclaiming America with our counterculture mom, Tina Griffin. Tina, welcome aboard. Good to see you.
Hey, thank you. How are you doing? How was your holiday?
Not bad. Had a good holiday. You too, I hope.
Absolutely. Happy New Year.
There you go. And let's see if it'll be less crazy than the one before it. I kind of doubt it. Our first story of the inaugural New Year is what's going on in California, where they're using public money to build a all-gender locker room at a swimming complex for a high school. Talk about this.
Yeah, Dr. Duke, you know what? It's a Happy New Year if you're not in Southern California, I'll just say that. A California high school has unveiled their plans to build an all-gender locker room. There's symbols behind my head that I don't even know what they mean any longer. It's getting so confusing. The Long Beach Unified School District will build an all-gender locker room at the new Aquatic Center at Wilson High School in Long Beach. Like you said, Dr. Duke, it's being paid for by the taxpayers, and most of them are absolutely against what's going on through what's called Measure E, a $1.5 billion school repair and safety bond measure that was passed by voters last November. My question is, Who are these voters that are trying to pass this and did pass it?
Yeah, it is scary. When you think about how poorly the public schools are performing across the country, and then you look at all these referendums, we seem to, as American people, the worse they're able to teach our kids, the less they teach our kids, the more money we hand them over, not to improve math or reading or science skills, but to build these incredibly huge complexes. Take a look at the blueprint here. In the bottom right-hand corner, you see where there are the inclusive bathrooms, right? As far as I can tell, they are the only bathrooms in the facility, and anybody can use anybody's bathroom down there if they want. And look at the way the lockers are positioned. Everybody gets a good look about who's changing and showering as well.
Yeah, it really makes my blood boil because I just see this as a total plot to give Planned Parenthood more customers. I mean, when people are seeing each other naked and undressing in front of each other, boys and girls together, not only just the uncomfortableness of that, but their whole identity is being trashed with who they are and who God designed them to be. On top of that, it absolutely is going to open the door for sexual activity. And I can bet you right now there's going to be people having sex in these inclusive locker rooms, which then, of course, they get pregnant and head over to Planned Parenthood. So I want to know if the money is tied to them as well. According to CBN News, Long Beach has a reputation of being LGBT inclusive, as it allows students to use bathrooms and locker rooms based on their gender identity, as well as participate in sports teams based on their gender identity, not their actual sex at birth. And once again, their gender identity is being defined and explored and pushed and given to them in class during the rest of the school day.
Well, this has less to do with the demand of children than the vanity of their parents and the local educrats there. They're building these palaces to LGBTQ for their own vanity, for their own sake, to show about how virtue signaling on a nationwide platform. And it's just such a shame. Like everywhere else in California, those kids aren't really blowing the doors off of their reading and their math and their science skills. And so all that money getting dumped into this pit.
Yeah, and the other thing I'm thinking about as we're talking about this story, how do these students feel? I can guarantee you a majority of these students are in an uproar. They feel uncomfortable. I'm now getting parents that are calling and texting me, some even from way up in Wisconsin, saying, Tina, what do we do here? We now have a gender neutral bathroom, the biggest bathroom spot. It's not just a small little one staller somewhere down the end of the hallway for people that are still confused or getting more confused by the minute being in a public school. It's the largest bathroom. And I had one mom call me and say, my daughter can't even go to the bathroom in this bathroom. She feels very uncomfortable. Well, what do these students in Long Beach actually feel? I bet you they're petrified and probably are hoping they don't have to go to the bathroom from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m.
Well, you make a great point that this is not just an accommodation for what is supposed to be a marginally small group of people. This is something that, because of a very small percentage of potential users, they're going to teach the rest of us a lesson. Heteronormativity is now being singled out and treated as if it were an ugly minority. And for a handful of kids, virtue signaling kids and their parents, they're going to make everybody else uncomfortable. We don't have a lot of good news to be in the beginning of the year, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk about courageous Matt Walsh and his new Amazon book. Talk about Johnny the Walrus.
Yeah, you know what? He's fantastic. He actually, I believe, moved to Tennessee because he's creating a storm out here and speaking up in our school board meetings. Writer, speaker, author Matt Walsh, very vocal voice against the transgender movement. He's representing 99% of the country. A lot of parents feel the same way. He's released a new children's book that tackles the trans agenda targeting children. It's called Johnny the Walrus. Basically about a boy named Johnny who has a big imagination. He pretends to be a dinosaur next day and night in shining armor or a puppy. But one day he pretends to be a walrus. When the internet people find out he likes to play make-believe, they try to force him to choose between who he is actually is and makes him force into basically choosing one of these things. He chooses, can't decide actually what to choose. And then his mother is very progressive, forces him to be a walrus. And the mom eventually learns that just because her child says he is a walrus doesn't mean he actually is that. Proving a point that you can't just shove down a kid's throat that they are not who God designed them to be. And just one day this different gender, another day a different gender. It's constantly blowing in the wind according to trends when we are born the way God designed us to be, male and female. He created us to be. Go to the Counterculture Mom app and download it, Google Play, iTunes Store. Click on Premium and then say yes to getting notifications. We pump out pop culture alerts every single day. About half are positive, awesome, grab it, get it. Half are run from it, these people are nuts. But parents are loving the Counterculture Mom app. We got a great team behind there, making sure you get the power back in your hands so you know what hogwash to run from before your kids see it.
All right, before we wrap things up, I do want to take a moment to show some love to our Patriot Club members. Today we give a great big shout out to Bruce from Callahan, Florida. Thank you, Bruce, so much for supporting us. And that will do it for us today. I'm Dr. Duke, and until next time, stay educated, my friends.